I want to start with the tweet that you shared very shortly after the decision was announced. There was a photo of you and Tamika, Breonna Taylor's mother. What can you tell us about that conversation that you had with her?
I was one of the attendees at the March on Washington, and while I was up there, there were so many faces, but the face of Tamika, Breonna
Mhm.
Taylor's mom, really stuck out. And so when I was up there and I met with her, I said to her, I want you to know that your daughter will not just be a hashtag. I want you to
Mhm.
know that you have people who will continue to lift her up and lift up her name because so many times people are reduced to just a hashtag. This is someone's child. This was someone's sister. And we have to do our best to make sure that we continue fighting for justice, no matter what the outcome is.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the biggest question we can ask ourselves is, what if that was your friend? She was 26 years
Mhm.
old. What if that was your daughter? And that makes the reality of it just sink in so much more. There is still an FBI investigation into the Breonna Taylor case, despite the state charges announced yesterday. Dr. Wendy, where do you see the case going, or what outcome do you hope to see on a federal level?
I hope that all the officers who participated are held accountable to some degree. Even the charges that came out yesterday was for not Breonna Taylor dying.
Mhm.
It was actually for the damage that her neighbors may have accrued or her walls. Like, let's think about that. Her walls got justice. The walls that she lives in her apartment, got more justice than her losing her life. That
Mhm.
is not acceptable in this country. Someone needs to be held accountable. And I know that some people may have some, arguments about, well, was she in bed? Was she on the floor? Put yourself in the position. If someone comes into your house, you are not
Mhm.
expecting anyone. What would you do? So whether you roll off the floor because you're fearful
Mhm.
or you're laying in bed, that does not warrant you to lose your life in the United States of America. It does not.
And before you
Absolutely.
before you ask the next question, Denny, I just want to add on to that because I think that was a great point. If you knew that the police was at your front door, why would you bring out a gun? Why would you do that?
Right. No
Why?
one
Right.
would. No one would. Absolutely. Like, if you announce yourself, if you come in, no one would do that. And then the person is not like after they shot one shot, which was a warning shot, her boyfriend, they didn't shoot multiple more. It was clearly
Right.
because it was
Right.
self-defense. If it was to
Mhm.
attack, it wouldn't just have been one shot.
Right.
And that's the thing here. I feel like there are so many questions that are being raised now about that night, about the incident, about this case. Some red flags are glaring and are starting to come out. And I feel like there's so many people who, despite the charges announced yesterday, they still want to hold the state accountable with calls to defund the LMPD. Dr. Wendy, what do you think that looks like or could look like, and is that enough?
So the whole, there's been a lot of conversation around defunding police. I just want to make it clear. The verbiage may not be attractive to some people, it may be scary because
Mhm.
when you hear defund, you may feel like you will not have any protection. But rather, from my vantage point, when people are saying defund the police, they mean reallocating resources to make sure that our police officers are there to protect and serve. Whether we know it or not, that's what police officers are there to do. They're there to de escalate, not escalate situations. And if they are continuously put in positions where people end up losing their life whenever a police officer is called, then we have to, as a country, think about the ways we train our police officers. So
Mhm.
defunding the police will simply mean taking resources and taking money, and instead of putting it towards militarizing our police, they instead go to different trainings. They instead
Mhm.
go to different workshops for them to be able to do what I call community policing, which is what we need.
Right. And I think people get that statement so wrong because we appreciate the police. For the most part, we're
Absolutely.
grateful for the police, but policing is a hard job. And that's
Yes,
why everybody can't do it. It's not for
absolutely.
everybody. And we have some people that are policing that honestly just don't need to. On September 15th, the city of Louisville, Kentucky agreed to pay $12 million dollars to the family of Breonna Taylor and enact police reforms. And this was a historic settlement. $12 million dollars is the highest they've ever paid to anyone, the city has ever paid to anyone when it comes to a wrongful death lawsuit. My question for you, Dr. Wendy, is do you think taking the money before they revealed the charges had any effect on the case? Brianna's family agreeing to this $12 million settlement. Do you think that could have affected the case in any way?
I think that could be up for debate, right? But at the end of the day, whether you give them $12 million or $100 million, that does not bring back Breonna Taylor. There is
Mm,
no monetary amount that can bring back her life, nor is there a monetary amount that can heal the pain of losing a child. And I say that as a mother of three. So, some people may come and say they shouldn't have taken the money, but at the end of the day, even after they received the money, the mother of Breonna Taylor, Tamika, still wanted justice for her daughter. She
Mhm.
did not look at that money as a form of justice. It's a form of restitution, but it's not a
Mhm.
form of justice. And we can't conflate the two. So justice has still not been served in this case.
Mhm. I'm so glad you made that clear. Now the conversation now is how do we move forward? What's next in this movement? Kerry Washington tweeted out something very powerful yesterday, and I just want to repeat it. She said, quote, "Whoever needs this, I understand the desire to not vote, to reject a system that abuses you and denies your worth. But please know that the system does see your worth and it's afraid of your power. That's why it works so hard to make you feel powerless. You are not powerless. Vote." Jamil Hill also tweeted something that just kind of wrapped everything up for me. She said, "I don't know who needs to hear this, but Attorney General in Kentucky and in most states is an elected position." A lot of people were upset with Daniel Cameron, who's the Kentucky Attorney General. And to know that you actually either voted to get him in that position or didn't vote at all, that's why he's there, just spoke volumes to me. So, my question for you is, how will this play out on the national stage November 3rd in the upcoming election?
So, if anyone had any question about the importance of an election, this is a testament to that. Daniel
mm,
Cameron is an elected position. And let me even take that further, just so you guys know how circular this is. Daniel Cameron was actually listed from Donald Trump as being on his potential shortlist to fill the
Mhm.
vacancy that Ruth Ginsburg just vacated due to her passing away. So, if you have any question on how important elections are, here you go. You have to vote. You have to vote and you have to look at people's records when you are voting. Voting is so important. And I know so many times people say, what does my voice mean? Your voice puts into position the people who have a direct impact on you. So many times we sit here and we harp on presidential elections. Yes, that is important. But local elections are what affect your everyday life. Your superintendents, your mayors, your state's attorney, your DAs, who will give you a plea deal, what you'll be charged for. So I really want everyone to know how it's incumbent upon you with less than 40 something days to go. You have to not only register to vote, but make sure your vote counts so we can prevent more hashtags in our cities. No more.
And with all that being said, while there are still people who are actively protesting following this decision, I feel like there's also the part of the world that is grieving and they're feeling
Yes.
discouraged. What message do you have for people who are feeling so helpless out there and for those people who still want to seek justice for Brianna?
I want everyone to know that, there is no movement in our country, in our history, that did not take time. We
Mhm.
talk
Mm,
about the civil rights movement. We talk about the women's suffrage movement. We talk about even the rights for, the LGBTQIA plus community. It takes time, but it also takes voices and it takes people making sure they continue to push on these issues, because if you do not, it will fall by the wayside. Use your voice. Use your voice. Your voice is the greatest form of advocacy there is. Not everyone can protest in the streets, but everyone can pick up their phone and call their elected officials. We all have a part to do in this movement. And I just ask everyone to sit back and think about, what role are you going to play? Because people often say, what would I have done if I lived in the civil rights movement? What would I have done if I lived in the women's suffrage movement? The truth of the matter is, it's exactly what you're doing now, because
mm.
history will have this moment in the history books. And you need to ask yourself, what did you do to propel this movement forward? That's what I have to say.
So
That you
beautifully
said
said.
it perfectly, yes. And that's
Thank
something I for sure ask myself every day. And also, if you want to educate yourself more on this case, anyone out there, the New York Times has a wonderful documentary they put together. It's called The New York Times Presents The Killing of Breonna Taylor. And that documentary really helped me understand what exactly the Attorney General was saying yesterday. It honestly made me more upset because you get so much context about what happened that night and what was left up in the air and just all of the loopholes. You can see them clearly. So I everyone watch it. If you have not watched it, make sure you do.
The only thing I'll add to that is let this fuel you. Let this fuel you.
Mhm.
Our many, many thanks to Dr. Wendy Osefo. We appreciate your time. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.